My name is Ryan Diamisi. I work at Christian Wealth Management as a wealth advisor, and my goal is to help people use their money as a tool to build their faith. So I wanted to bring up a question that has come up over the years. I started doing this in 2013. It's 2026 now. Pull out your calculators. 2026 minus 2013 is 13 years. And over the last 13 years, there's been different comments people brought up of fear that the government is going to access and take away their 401k. So I want to address that concern. So the question is, can the government access your 401k and take money from it? If you do a simple Google search, you can see that there's maybe 3 different reasons that the government may access your 401k. To satisfy unpaid tax debt that you have, to fulfill court orders for alimony or child support that you haven't paid, and then any federal fines that you haven't paid. So those examples are all just, if you don't do what every other American citizen is doing, which is paying taxes, following through on commitments for child support, alimony, or paying federal fines, the government can't access them, it seems like, to satisfy those debts, which, I mean, it makes sense. So I want to think through, when clients have brought this question up to me, I like asking them, where have they heard that the government may access their 401k? So I think it's always interesting to assess if you're hearing a message, especially if it's communicating fear, it's important to ask, what might be the motive of the person communicating this message? A very simple question, but important to ask if somebody's trying to lead, especially if they're trying to sell something using fear. A couple scriptures to think about when it comes to fear. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Philippians 4:6-7 says to be anxious about nothing, but in every situation by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. When I think through, especially Philippians 4:6, the way that I interpret that is I am often an anxious person. I'm not reading that as if you're anxious, you're sinning. I'm reading that when you are anxious, ask God for help. That's another encouragement is as you're hearing messages of fear that get communicated often, to recognize that God has told us not to be fearful and that we should ask him for help. While I am not convinced that anything in this world is guaranteed, my conviction is I'm convinced nothing is guaranteed in this life outside of we will die, we will pay taxes. Those 2 things, those are the only guarantees that you have. We can also reflect and say, okay, if we are we want to be good stewards, we want to make good decisions that aren't foolish with our money. It's wise to think through what are the safest places to put money or what's the most proven. But I want to talk about where people tend to lean towards when they are fearful. What are the decisions people tend to make when it comes to investments? Oftentimes it's using an annuity or running to precious metals. Those 2 options are the most common that come up. So what is an annuity? An annuity is an insurance product. So an insurance product is you're transferring the risk to the insurance company. Every insurance, for your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance, there's a cost associated with that. But the benefit is now you're not worrying if a branch falls on your roof and you need to replace your roof because the insurance company has promised to take care of things like that. So what an annuity company often does is they're going to provide you some levels of guarantee, and maybe it's going to be a guaranteed income source. And when it comes to financial planning, it is important to have a guaranteed income source. If something happens to the insurance company and they've given you a guarantee, but in the financial planning world, we do want our fixed expenses, which we've talked through our needs before, which are shelter, transportation, food, clothing. Those fixed expenses, we want guaranteed income sources to meet those fixed expenses. When the market goes down in value, we're not worrying about your basics being met. If Social Security or other guaranteed income sources fall short, annuity is where you would plug that in. Is you would buy, or you could consider buying an annuity. There's fixed, variable, etc. There's a lot of different annuities. We won't go into that, but that's where you would want to transfer the risk to an annuity company to meet the basic expenses. Beyond that, you can continue to transfer the risk over to the companies for your excess, but it's been proven over a long period of time that that is not the way to be most effective with the resources that God's trusted with us. Again, because at the end of the day, what are the annuity companies doing with the money that you're giving them? You're transferring the risk to them. They're taking their money and they're investing in and hoping that they can get a better return than they're giving you. So with an annuity, we're transferring risk to an insurance provider. They're giving us a guarantee back, and that is helpful up to our basic needs being met. So the annuity is one of the solutions people run to out of fear. The other and solution that people run to out of fear is buying precious metal, gold, silver, etc. And is there a place for gold and silver? There totally is. If somebody's concerned about the end of the world and is convinced that they want an alternative form of exchange if the US dollar collapses, gold would be a good solution for somebody to have a portion of what they have in gold to meet that specific need, which is, I'm concerned the end of the world's coming and I want to be able to shave off some gold or silver in exchange for food. That can make sense to have. What I wouldn't do, or I would be cautious about thinking about putting all of my money in precious metals, knowing that their returns long-term aren't great. Well, another solution that people run to is gold or silver, precious metals, out of fear. And while there is a place for precious metals, my conviction is if you're going to have precious metals as part of your portfolio, have it be physical in your home or somewhere that you feel is safe. That way you can access it in a end of the world type environment, that you can actually physically get your hands on it and use it as a medium of exchange. That's my conviction on it. I think it's appropriate to consider it being part of your emergency fund, which generally is going to be 3 to 6 months of expenses. If you're closer to retirement, it's maybe 12 months of expenses. So those are some ideas. Why I don't like it as a long-term investment opportunity is the returns lag over the long term versus diversified stock mutual funds. And what a stock mutual fund is you're owning often more than 10, most of the time over 50, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of different companies. So you're owning a lot of different companies. Well, what's a company? Well, a company is, we know this, but I think it's a helpful reminder that a company's job is to help other people. If they're not helping other people, they should go out of business. That's the basics of it. If a company is not helping other people, they should be going out of business. And that's a great value proposition to invest in companies that are helping other people. Mutual funds, stock mutual funds give us exposure to a lot of different companies. So that way, when one goes bankrupt, it's a small portion of your overall portfolio, but it still gives us potential that we're owning things instead of just lending money. We're actually taking an ownership position. So as these companies hopefully continue to grow, we'll get to experience the benefit of the company growing. So if it's me thinking through how am I going to plan my own financial life, I'm going to approach it knowing that God has given me all the time, all the resources I need to accomplish exactly what He wants me to do. God's provision is always sufficient and it's always on time. So knowing that, I can assess my finances not from a position of fear, but a position of being content. And I can assess, okay, an annuity will make sense for up to my basic needs if other options aren't meeting that. And then for anything above my basic needs, a diversified stock strategy could make a lot of sense for the most income potential so that I can be outrageously generous and store up treasures, hopefully in heaven and not on earth. So circle back to the beginning question, is the government going to take away your 401k? I can't promise you that. I think it's unlikely, but I can't promise you that. What I do know is Jesus gave us instruction to store up treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy. And I think it's would serve us the best if we spend our time thinking through, what did Jesus mean by storing up treasures in heaven? Hopefully this content inspired you to think about your money a little bit differently. At Christian Wealth Management, we want to help people to use their money as a tool to build their faith. And primarily we do that through the plans that we're making and even the companies that we're invested in. We want to be looking for companies that are not extracting value from humanity by making money off of addictions like alcohol, tobacco, gambling, or pornography. And we want to invest in companies that are trying to help other people. And so those are the kind of foundation pieces of what we do at Christian Wealth Management, is building plans that help build our faith. And while we are investing, we want to invest in companies that are promoting kingdom values. We hope this content inspired you to think about your money differently. Feel free to leave your comments below. Thanks for listening again. See you next time.